Remember when everyone was buzzing about this big-budget adaptation of one of the most iconic dark fantasy series ever written? Fans were thrilled to see Henry Cavill, a self-proclaimed fantasy geek and The Witcher superfan, cast as Geralt of Rivia. There was real promise, and the first season gave us hope, even if the timeline was confusing and disjointed. We shrugged off the erratic pacing and jumped timelines because, hey, it had potential. But then things started to fall apart. The narrative became a convoluted mess with little regard for clarity. Monster of the Week plots barely held things together, and the show's setting, supposedly a gritty, medieval-inspired world, started to feel more like a random blend of modern sensibilities awkwardly pasted onto a fantasy backdrop. Every town felt the same. Every character started blending into one another. And Geralt, arguably the main draw, was gradually pushed to the sidelines. Instead, the spotlight shifted more and more toward Yennefer and Ciri. Not necessarily a bad thing if handled well, but it wasn't. The character dynamics lost balance, and the world-building grew more inconsistent. All the while, the tone veered toward a kind of performative progressivism that seemed more interested in ticking modern ideological boxes than respecting the story's source material or tone. By season 3, the show had lost not just its star actor, but also the confidence of its core fan base. Cavill's departure wasn't just a blow, it was the final straw for many. He had been a staunch advocate for staying true to Andrzej Sapkowski's original vision, often clashing with writers who, by some accounts, didn't even respect the books they were adapting. When he left, many fans went with him. Now, with season 4 on the horizon and Liam Hemsworth stepping into the role of Geralt, the question has to be asked, who is this show even for anymore? It's certainly not for fans of the books, who've seen major themes and characters reinterpreted or discarded. Nor is it for gamers, who hoped for a tone similar to CD Projekt Red's celebrated adaptations. Even casual fantasy fans have other better shows to watch, ones that don't feel like they're constantly at war with their own source material. The Netflix adaptation feels like a relic from a time when every studio thought they could fix classic stories with a modern, often politicized twist, whether the material suited it or not. Rather than honor the depth and complexity of Sapkowski's world, the showrunners opted to reshape it in their own image, alienating the audience that made it successful in the first place. There's a grim irony here. The Witcher had the potential to be the next Game of Thrones, a mature, intelligent, character-driven fantasy epic. Instead, it's become a cautionary tale of what happens when showrunners prioritize ideology and spectacle over storytelling and character. And that brings us back to Henry Cavill. The guy was clearly invested. He loved the lore, he respected the universe, and he tried to keep things grounded. But when the people in charge dismiss your input and treat the source material like an obstacle instead of a foundation, what can you really do? Cavill didn't walk away from The Witcher because he didn't care. He walked because he did. What remains now is a hollow shell of a once promising show. Liam Hemsworth may be perfectly fine in the role, but he's been set up for failure in a series that already burned through its goodwill. This isn't a fresh reboot. It's a 4th season of a series many consider creatively bankrupt. At some point, you have to know when to stop. Not every show deserves to be dragged on indefinitely, especially when it's become more of an obligation than a passion project. Sometimes, The kindest thing you can do to a beloved story is let it end before it's too far gone. Unfortunately, The Witcher seems destined to continue, whether fans want it to or not.